In my last video, I showed you my first day at attempting to get my plane to fly. And at the end of that day, I got 4 attempts that day, I ended up snapping the wings. The tabs that hold the wings together along this fuselage part, those snapped, and so the wings came loose. I also ended up breaking my vertical stabilizer. And so those were the 2 major pieces of damage that I had last time. And what you're looking at now is the plane after my second day of trying to fly. And you can see my vertical stabilizer is still intact. My wings are intact, but that does not mean that I had a successful day. I got a total of 2 attempts, and both of them pretty much did what had happened to me on my first day, in that the plane went up after I tossed it, and then shortly after just simply nosedived. And I tried it again, made some minor adjustments before doing that, but tried it again, had a repeat. This time, after crashing nose in, you'll see that I've split the nose. You can also see that it's not quite aligned anymore. And the reason for that is that it is also cracked along the side. So the nose part of this suffered some serious damage. So I need to try to figure out what's going on. I did change things up on my second day of flying. I simply didn't repeat what I did on the first day. One of the things that I did was, rather than use flaps, I had flaps at about 50% the first time. I tried flying it with no flaps this time. Again, the results were pretty much the same. The other thing I tried to do was I got my son involved. I figured, all right, rather than one person trying to do this, giving it the toss, getting on the controls, and trying to get things working, get my son on the transmitter, on the control. With him being younger and in that generation of playing video games and that, thinking that he'd have better capabilities than I would, and I would be the one that was tossing it. And as I said, we ended up with the same results for the most part. It did yaw a little bit to the left, but for the most part, after the toss, go up and then nosedive down. So I'm going to obviously have to make some repairs. I'm going to have to try to rebuild and strengthen this nose. And what I'm looking at trying to do on my third day of trying to get this to fly is eliminate the electronics chassis. I'm going to go ahead and remove all this, leave just the basic transmitter receiver, actually the receiver, in the plane. And so that's going to lighten it. It's also going to remove any possibility that maybe something's not, I don't have it right with my APM. When I did try flying it on the second day, I had the APM in the stabilized mode, and that's the mode that's recommended when you're first trying. And again, I had no success. So I'm not quite sure still what's going on, but I'm going to go ahead and give this another try. Just a couple notes. You'll see that I've got a ferrite ring on my cable going to my telemetry radio. And inside here, I also added some ferrite rings for the rudder and the elevator. Also, when I had it apart making repairs on the wing, I added internal here, close to the motors, ferrite rings for each the flaps and the ailerons. You'll also notice some additional pieces of tape that are on the plane now. I reinforced the tabs after gluing them with the fiber reinforced tape. So the tape is actually on the bottom side here because those tabs are on the bottom side. The only other real damage, and it's minor as a result of my second day of flying, was back along the tail there. The tube that holds the control rod, and the linkage there has separated from the fuselage, but that's pretty easy to fix. But also back to these ferrite rings. I first added the 4, these 2, plus the flaps and the aileron. And in doing some testing, I was still getting that servo jitter. It wasn't until I added the one on the radio transmitter that my jitter, for all intents and purposes, went away. And I sort of suspected that, but it's certainly not going to hurt to have those other ferrite rings in there. So, I think as far as getting rid of any noise, I'm in pretty good shape there. All right, so back to the repairs and get this fixed up and give it a third attempt now. Thank you.